Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video lesson, we're going to talk about the different types of reds and blues in order to make purples. Now, taking a little bit of a color theory lesson, that you'll never get a pure purple / violet by mixing colors. You need to work with a single pigment, and for that you could use dioxazine purple. I've had the same tube of dioxazine purple in oils and the different brands of acrylics for so many years that the paint is actually drying out before I get to use it, in the acrylics anyways. I don't particularly like using dioxazine purple because it's just way too intense for me. I like mixing my purples. In saying that, you will always get different purples or violets based on the red and the blue that you use. So for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to go over a bunch of reds. I'm focusing on only 2 blues and white. And I'm using the DecoArt acrylics, DecoArt Media Fluid acrylics, and the Traditions. The fluid is primarily what I use for mixed media, but it dries super fast, which is why I like it for demonstrations. The Traditions are a much thicker pigment, which are suitable for more intermediate and fine art. So what I've got is I've got my color wheel here. I'm going to go over the paint in a sec. I've got my color wheel here, and I'd like to recommend to students is that don't be forced to use a limited palette with only a red, yellow, and a blue, and a white, and a black. Use what you have first. Then when you're ready to replace your paints, after learning more about color, get the better quality paints. Don't stick with cheap paint so you can have lots of tubes. Is to learn a bit more about color and then condense your palette down to maybe 10 to 12 colors, but get the really good stuff. And trust me, the really good stuff, the paints are so full of pigment, they'll last a lot longer. So when you're choosing your red, when you're choosing your palette, colors always lean to one or the other. And you'll have artists out there that say, nope, here's a red that is red, it's not violet or it's not orange. And that may be so. It may be a very unique pigment, unique to them. Well, to me, something kind of always leans one way or the other. So when I say about that, I'm thinking, okay, if I have a red, does the red lean a bit more towards violet or a bit more towards orange? The blue is the easiest one to do. Ultramarine blue, okay, so you're thinking blue is here. Ultramarine blue is a blue that sits right about here. It has more violet in it, whereas phthalo blue is a blue that has a bit more green in it, so it sits more right about here. And that's why you can't get a clean purple just by using red and blue, because there's different blues and different reds. So what I've got here is I've got Napthol Red Light, Pyrrole Red, Napthol Red, Napthol AS Hue, Primary Magenta, Quinacridone Red, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue, and Titanium White. Okay, so once we create our mixture on our other sheet, we'll be able to see exactly where they lean on this color wheel. So I like to tell people, my students, say, okay, if you're going to pick a red that has a bit more violet in it, and pick a red that has a bit more orange in it. A very easy one for that is, let's say, cadmium red light, because you can do portraits with that. And let's say you can do maybe a Quinacridone Red, which is something right around here, or a Permanent Alizarin Crimson, which I forgot to put out here, and I'm going to have to go and get it. Same thing with the blue. You don't have to stick to one blue. Get the ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. That way, the phthalo blue is fantastic for seascapes and skies with a bit of green, and ultramarine blue are great for skies, and just generally, it's such a universal pigment that is one I tell my students you have to have that, because it can be used for so many different things. Same thing with yellow. Your yellow that leans towards green could be like a Hansa yellow light, and a yellow that leans a bit more towards orange could be, let's say, cadmium yellow medium, or let's say derylid yellow. Okay, so you get where I'm going with this. So got the color wheel here, and I created a chart here. And what I've done, I'm going to have to put another thing on here, so which is going to be tiny, Permanent Alizarin Crimson. So I'm going to have to go and get the paint. I'm going to put that right over here. Then my chart's going to be squishy. So I'm going to go over the pigments with you, and there's only one that's a mix, and I'm going to explain that. So Napthol Red Light is PR9, so it's a pigment red. Pyrrole Red is PR254, another pigment red. Napthol Red is PR170. Cadmium Red Hue in the media line is PR112 and PW6. So they've taken the pigment red and added white. But in the traditions, the Napthol AS Hue is only PR112, so it's a single pigment. So I'm going to be using this one. Anytime I'm using paints, I want to use a single pigment because I can always add white if I need to. But if I want to get that, red and I want to make it transparent, it's very hard when there's already a white mixed into it. Primary magenta is PV19, so that means it's a pigment violet. Quinacridone Red is also PV19, which is a pigment violet. And Permanent Alizarin Crimson is PR177. Now, when you have two of these paints and they're pigment violet, they're both pigment violet, PV19, but they're different colors, that just means that the paint has been manipulated in different ways. It's been processed in different ways to get different things. Where the burnt umbers and burnt siennas is how they heat process it and all that stuff. Ultramarine Blue is PB29, pigment blue, and Phthalo Blue is PB15 too. And the titanium white in the traditions and in the fluid acrylics are both PW6. Okay, so I'm going to put this away because that's distracting for me. And I'm going to just be using a little number 8 round brush. I've got two water containers here. One from my first rinse and then another one from my second rinse, just so I can get the cleanest mixes as possible. So we're going to start off with putting out the paints here, and I'm putting it this way because out of the camera view you won't be able to see. We'll start off with Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the paint out here, like so. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit of white, so you'll be able to see how it leans. And this definitely leans towards the blue. That is easy peasy to see that. Leans towards the blue. By adding white, you get to see the true underlying colors. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take Permanent Alizarin Crimson. We're going to add Ultramarine Blue to it. We'll say roughly equal parts. I already know what's going to happen because this is a mixture I use all the time. So we'll put that on here. Then we'll take a little bit of white and we'll put it here. You get a nice mauve. Now, how you can shift that is just by adding more blue to it to make it more blue, or add more of the Alizarin Crimson to make it more red. But look how beautiful that purple is. So now if we take the Alizarin Crimson, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, and add a speck of Phthalo Blue, that's even too much. Add a speck of Phthalo Blue. Put that on here. Not enough paint. Phthalo Blue is extremely powerful, so just be careful how much you add to it. And I can't quite see that. Let me just add a little bit of white to it now. Yeah, that's okay. You can see when I use the traditions, because it's much thicker, that it just becomes a little bit more challenging. That's still really red. Let me add a bit more blue to that. Very, very hard to see when it's a dark mix. There we go. And we're just adding the white so we can see the true underlying color. Very different type of violet. This one's really, really pretty. This one's really pretty. So are we saying, well, if we just add more white, will it look like this? Not necessarily. but close. Here we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now if we take, I'm not gonna be able to do this chart properly. So if we take Napthol Red Light, which is now over here, okay, Napthol Red Light is right here. And I have no idea why I even drew the lines this way because they don't make any sense. And then add a little bit of white to it. Yeah, I was supposed to put the chart here, but with the, oh, I forgot the paint. So this is a red that leans a bit more towards the orange. So if we take Napthol Red Light, I'm going to go down here and add some Ultramarine Blue to it. And never dip your brush into the middle of the puddle. Always go on the outside because then that way you can work around and not contaminate your paint. So there's the purple there. Take a bit of white. You get kind of a dusty mauve in there. Again, very pretty. We take Napthol Red Light and we take a speck of Phthalo Blue. Take a bit of white. It looks a little bit duller, just a little bit duller, because the Phthalo Blue has a little bit of green in it, and green and red neutralize each other. So the next one is a Pyrrole Red. Oh, let's put that down right here first. A little bit of white. And I find Pyrrole Red with white to be a very clean red. It's a nice neutral red. It tends to lean a bit more towards the blue. And now if I take that red with a little bit of ultramarine blue, go here, pick up a little bit of white, this is a violet I like very, very much. Very, very much. And now that we're running out of room, what I'm going to do is just wipe that up. You normally wouldn't have to do a lot of cleanup like this. It's just because just because I'm filming and I'm limited on space. Whoopsie. Oh, I wonder if I'll get phthalo blue on me. I always, when I'm working with the phthalo colors, I always end up with some type of phthalo all over me. And I'm just going to clean that outside part. Okay. Alrighty, so now we are doing the Pyrrole Red. A little bit of phthalo blue. Again, when you're using the phthalo blue, add it in very, very small increments. And I think I'm going to have to add white to that because I can't quite see. Yeah, that's not bad. So, well, I might as well take this and put it over here. That's still too red. Let me add a bit more blue to that. And then white. Again, it's a very neutral, dusty mauve. I love that. For mountains, this makes a great, great mixture. Okay, so, and when you're doing this exercise, the paints that you have here, put it into an art journal or something, or just create a piece of mixed media just so it's not wasted. Napthol Red. Okay, this is super thick. I love this pigment. Absolutely love it. Nice and thick, always consistent. Ultramarine blue. Add a bit more blue to that. Oh, that's not enough blue. We want to make a violet, not red. And then we'll load some white. Look how beautiful that is. Oh, wow. I love that. Again, it's your personal preference. Some of you may say that's an ugly violet. It is completely up to you how you want to mix up your colors. Just because I like it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like it. And then the red with the phthalo blue with the Napthol Red. I'm going to add more red to that. Very, very dark. Gotta add white so you can see the true underlying color. That is really nice. I like that. So you can see the big differences. Because this has more of the blue and then the red is more on the violet side, that's why it looks more rosy. Where this one here has a bit more of the green in it, so it's a bit more neutral. It doesn't look so red. And then you can then take that and then shift the colors and just keep going and going and going. I mean, this exercise is basically unlimited, and you can get really caught up in doing your color mixing, which I highly recommend. You should really learn. If you're serious about art, not so much serious as a professional painting, but if you're serious about art and using good quality paints and saving money at the same time, learning about color is something you really should do. Napthol AS Hue. So this is the one where in the media fluid acrylics, DecoArt has taken this pigment and then added white to it. A nice deep red. And to me, now the Napthol Red leans a bit more towards the blue, where this one here seems to be a little bit more on the orange side. Not a lot, not as much as Napthol Red Light, but not a lot. So this is depending on the light. I'm using a cool light. So yeah, it leans a little bit more towards the orange. So it depends on the lighting that you use as well. My lights are the daylight bulbs, so the stuff will cast naturally to be more cool. All right, so ultramarine blue. And I'm thinking that's a little bit too red. Yeah, it's a bit too red, but that is really pretty. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna add some more white to that. When I make these charts, I usually make them 2 feet by 4 feet, so they're easier to mix up. Which one am I doing? This. Oh, now I'm confused what I'm doing. There we go. There we are. So similar to this one. Add a bit more white. Not quite as blue as this one. Okay, and then if we then go with the phthalo blue. So with the amount of phthalo blue I put in here, the red was still powerful. So I'm going to put a bit more. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. And I don't believe in formulas. 1 part this, 2 part this. I like to pick up a little bit of this and a little bit of that and try it. What a difference. Look at that. Excuse me. Look at that. This is duller. This is more vibrant. This is duller. Never mind how light or dark it is. I'm talking about the actual color. This is more dull because that phthalo blue has a bit leans towards the green. And I will show you at the end what I mean about that. Let's clean that up. Okay. And when you're working now, we're going into the pigment violets. We got 2 left. The pigment violets, they're going to make the cleanest purples. They're going to make the cleanest purples. So this is primary magenta. Too much water in there. And let's pick a clean part of the white. Beautiful rosy color. Beautiful rosy color. And typically you wouldn't waste your paint like that, but we're doing color mixing, so I want to get the colors as clean as possible. So now the primary magenta with ultramarine blue will yield you a really, really pretty violet. Very clean, not dull. Very, very clean. Now if we're going to take primary magenta with phthalo blue, this one's going to be interesting. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, whoa, this is beautiful. Because the primary magenta is more on the blue side, this is where this particular mix really shines. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? So far I get the cleanest purples using primary magenta with either blue. So with the phthalo blue, it's more on the blue side. With the ultramarine blue, it's more on the red side. But then I can take this and I can just add more blue to it. Like I said, you could do this for hours. And let me just clean this up. You could also just use palette paper for your palette. And then just check your recycling center if it's, you can put that into recycling. I can't. If I use palette paper, it goes in the garbage. It can't be recycled because of the paint. So Quinacridone Red. When I first look at this, I look, oh, it's kind of a flat red. Looks like there's red with white in it or something. Then let me just turn this around this way so you can see that better. So I'm going to pick up our white. And look at that. Look how vibrant that is. That's still a really pretty, pretty color. Not as blue as a primary magenta, but still more on the blue side. And now let's take our ultramarine blue. ultramarine blue. Oops, now that's too much. But I'm looking here. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. We'll take our white. There's another really pretty violet. A bit more on the red side. Hang on a second. No, it's a bit more on the blue side. Look, it's a bit more on the blue side. So what's going to be interesting is this Quinacridone Red is a red that still leans towards blue but more red. Wonder what it's going to look like with the Phthalo Blue, which I only added a little bit to. Let's see what that's like. Oh, not enough blue. I'm just seeing it down here. Need to add more blue to that. It's hard to make them exactly the same ratios because the Phthalo Blue is so much stronger. Oh, that's really nice too. That is really, really pretty as well. There we go. So all those different, so just by using the different reds and just two blues, you can see all these differences. So I'm going to let this dry, but let's just switch over to this now while this is drying. Just to do, actually, let's do another card. Example of the blues, what I was talking about, leaning towards one or the other. So we have ultramarine blue. With white. And this is a blue that leans towards orange, violet. Okay. Then if we take the Phthalo Blue, is a blue that leans towards green. You can see I have to use a lot more blue, or a lot more of the white, because the tinting strength is very strong. I think I picked up a bit of red there. Ultramarine blue is a much weaker pigment, so it goes light very quickly, where the Phthalo Blue I have to add a lot. I have to add a lot of white. And try not to pick up any... Oh, I picked up red by accident. There we go. Okay, so now you can see what I'm talking about, where this blue leans more towards the red, or more towards violet, and this blue leans more towards the green. So by using these, having these in mind, you'll know if you want to create a purple that's more neutral, then you can take a red with the Phthalo Blue, and if you want to create a purple that's more clean and not so much intense, but cleaner, that's more of a red violet, you're going to use the ultramarine blue. And that's where it shows in here. So by taking the cleanest, to make the cleanest purple, I'm looking here and I'm thinking that I'm personally, just myself, the cleanest purple, I'm thinking probably the Quinacridone, but either one, Quinacridone Red or Primary Magenta, either one. But I'm thinking probably for my red, I'm thinking probably Quinacridone Red would be my choice. And then for a more neutral violet, oh God, there's so many choices. Thinking Napthol Red, Permanent Alizarin Crimson are very similar, whereas Napthol AS Hue, Pyrrole Red, they're similar as well. So if I had to choose, I'm thinking probably Napthol Red might be my choice. Either Napthol Red or Permanent Alizarin Crimson. That's probably what I would choose. Because this one here, I can get something that's more red-violet, and this one's more violet. Yeah, so I'm thinking probably Napthol Red might be a good one to mix. With either Ultramarine Blue or Phthalo Blue, and then Quinacridone Red with Phthalo Blue or Ultramarine Blue. I kind of like the mixes here. Although Primary Magenta, you get much differences. Again, when I was mixing the paint, this one here I may have added a bit more blue to it, where this one here I may have added a bit more red to it. So it all depends. So on the color wheel, so if we take a look at this, so Napthol Red Light is probably right about here. Permanent Alizarin Crimson, I'm looking right about here. Pyrrole Red, I'm thinking probably right about here. Napthol Red, Napthol Red and Napthol AS Hue, I'm thinking they're probably just right about here somewhere. And Permanent Magenta and Quinacridone Red are right over here as well. Now with the Ultramarine Blue sits right about here, and Phthalo Blue sits right about here. So you'll notice that you'll get more violets when you're working from something over here on the color wheel. So the Quinacridone Red and the Primary Magenta, which is already here, and with the Ultramarine Blue, which is over here, you're going to get a much cleaner range of violets. Hopefully that makes sense. Whereas if you take something that's over here with a Phthalo Blue, they're close to opposite on the color wheel, which means they're going to neutralize each other. So anything that's opposite, so even red with green, red with blue green, red with yellow green, these are going to be red with green, the most neutralizing, it cuts down the intensity, and then the yellow green and the blue green, it cuts down the intensity but not as much. So with blue and orange will neutralize each other. Blue with red orange and blue with yellow orange neutralize each other but not as much. Okay, that's for another lesson. So take all your reds, take all your blues, and create similar charts like this, and just to see, what type of violets that you like, and then whichever ones you like, that's the paint you're going to focus on, and just get the best quality paint. And you can see that I put out all those colors, and that was it. That's now I'm going to have to either put them back in the bottle or do some mixed media, which is probably what I'm going to do. Just do some mixed media. Color wise for highlighting, this is be nice for floral. For landscapes though, I would lean towards this. For mountains, reflections, even some shadows. These make beautiful shadow colors. So in the darks, they all look the same, like the pure darks, they look the same. But the minute you add the white, that's where you're going to see the difference. So play with the colors, add more, when you're creating your mix of, let's say, take your red and your ultramarine blue, add the ultramarine blue, then add a bit more red and a bit more blue, just to get different ratios, just to see the colors that you get. And remember, always add white so you can see what the true underlying color is. All right, so I hope that you learned a little bit about what all the different types of reds mixed with blues, how they make all these different types of purples. And please give this a try. If you have any questions on this lesson, please comment below the video. And I would love to see pictures, so feel free to email them to me if you want, or you can post them in the private Facebook group. Links to both of those are on the website at artplace.ca. Alrighty, so I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to just go into doing some mixed media now so I don't have to waste this paint. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.